الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا. صلوات عليك براد. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower His blessings on all those who are gathered here to celebrate the birth anniversary of the first grandson of the Prophet of Islam, the second Imam of the Shias, and the person who was introduced by the Prophet himself as one of the two chiefs of the youths of paradise, Al-Hasan wal-Hussein, salawatullah alayhim ajma'een. Salawatullah. There are many statements from the Prophet in praise of the two brothers. And therefore, those who compile the ahadith in the fadail and praise of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they divide them into two sections. One section deals with the statements of the Prophet where he has talked about both of them together. And then the section deals with the statements where the Prophet talks only about one or the other. And one of those common ahadith that we have is where the Prophet says to regarding his grandsons that huma imaman, both of them are imams and leaders. Qama aw qa'ada, whether they stand up and fight against the enemy or they sit down and make peace with the enemy. This is not only a hadith talking about the imamat of both of them. Actually, it was in a way prediction of what will happen in the future. Because we see in the lives of both imams later on, Imam Hassan alayhi salam made peace with Muawiyah, whereas Imam Hussain alayhi salam fought against Yazid. And this itself has become, even now, a question. Why the two brothers, dealt with situations differently. One made peace with the enemy and other fought till the end against the enemy. And I would just like to take this opportunity to just, ponder on this question about the issue of how do we deal with our adversaries. I leave it to your imagination to think about what does it mean. But, we have to look at the seerah of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt to learn lessons how to deal with those who do not like us. And this is where we see that when it comes to the seerah of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein and difference in their strategies, this itself says that there is no one solution when it comes to how do you deal with the adversary. You will have to look at the circumstances. For us, for example, the political environment is very important. Our own means and resources are very important. And we have to see what are our objectives and goals. And based on that, you will be able to define what would be your strategy. There is no one cure for all illnesses. And this is where we see, for example, unfortunately, some among the Shia only look at one way. There is a group who thinks that whenever it comes to the issue of dealing with the adversaries, you should always be confrontational. There is another group on the other extreme which only thinks about isolation and being totally docile. Both are wrong. Because wisdom demands that in every situation you look at the circumstances. Based on the circumstances that you find yourself, you make the decision whether you want to deal with this situation in a confrontational manner or in a manner of trying to make peace with the adversary. You look at the seerah of the Prophet, look at the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. When the Prophet was in Mecca, his strategy was something else compared to when he migrated to Medina. There he was in a minority. In Medina, he was basically the head of the state. Even in Medina itself, when the enemies, confronted him with war and warfare, of course he had to defend himself, his faith and his followers. And so he goes to war. But then in the 6th year, by his own initiation, he intends to go for Umrah. And that brings about the situation where he ends up signing a peace treaty with the enemy, the mushrikeen of Mecca. And this is known as Sulh Hudaybiyah. And it's interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about this peace treaty with the enemy, He describes that as a victory. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. That we have, given to you an obvious victory. So it's not that when we deal with the enemy, adversaries, we always have to be confrontational. There are different ways. You have to look at the time and the place and the circumstances and then make the decision. For Rasulullah, that signing of the peace treaty was not easy. There were some conditions there which were not, acceptable to many Muslims, some of the prominent ones there. They said, you're actually giving in to them. You're removing your name from the title of Rasulullah and many other conditions, but Rasulullah knew that by this peace treaty, at least doors will open up for the Muslims to travel in the Arabian Peninsula and to spread the message of Islam. And therefore, within 3 years, Rasulullah had control of the entire Arabian Peninsula, not by war, but by propagation and by da'wah and tabligh. Salawat. Amir al-Mu'mineen also, look at his own time, not the days when he was with Rasulullah. The early days were very difficult for him. But he adopted the policy of patience against very serious adversaries. The whole issue of what happened to the house of Bibi Fatima, what happened to Amir al-Mu'mineen. There later on in one of the khutbah he describes that I saw, what should I do? Should I fight or should I, exercise patience? And there he says in that khutbah that I decided for the sake of the wider good of the ummah to adopt patience, although there was pricking in the eyes and suffocation in the throat. This is how he's describing his state at that time. But he still maintained patience. When you look at the 25 years of the time of the 3 Khulafa, when Umar appointed the committees to select the next Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen agreed to be in it. He was named by the second Khalifa. Did Ali really believe in that so-called constitutional committee or consultative committee which will appoint a Khalifa? Ali didn't believe in that system of Khilafat. But the only reason why he agreed to sit on it was in order, in his own words he says, I just wanted people to realize the falsehood of the statements of the second Khalifa, because he's the one. In Saqifa he said that Nubuwwat and Khilafat cannot be in the same family. In Saqifa. And now he is appointing me to sit in the committee where one of us will be eligible to become the Khalifa. So his later decision goes against his first statement. And therefore he decided to go and be part of that, Shura, the consultative committee. When you look at the third Khilafat, Amir al-Mu'mineen was very much against the policies of the third Khalifa, especially when it came to the matters of, finance and social justice. But then Amir al-Mu'mineen did not take part in the protest by the masses. Why? Because he didn't want the administration to get an excuse to blame him for fomenting the opposition against the Khalifa. He was against the Khalifa, but he didn't want to become linked with that process in that way. So this, and then you look at his own Khilafah. Very short, 5 years. But now that people had accepted willingly that he is the Khalifa and the leader of the time, now when people rebelled against him, Ali took a very strong and firm action against them. Whether you look at Jamal or Siffin or Naharawan. And this variety of strategies basically explains to us that you have to look at the time and the circumstances in which you find yourself. And that is why we see the difference in the policy of Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat padhne ek baar. Let me extend to our own situation, the Shia world at the moment. You know, you cannot have one policy of dealing with situations on a global level. You can't give aspirin to every, patient who comes to you. There are different medicines for different, problems. If you look at a situation where there is a country which is predominantly Shia, their strategy and outlook would be different. Then you look at a country which has a simple majority of the Shias with a considerable Sunni minority. Their situation would be different. The strategy that they have to adapt would be different from the first one. Then you can have a country where you have a Shia which are in a simple minority, but you have then a large number of Sunni and Christian communities also. There you will see that the method that they would adapt would be different from the first and the second. Then you go to the Muslim countries where Shias are in minority. Then you go to areas of the world where the Shias are a minority in a non-Muslim country. These are all different situations, different circumstances, and the solutions will not be always same for all parts of the world. Sometimes when I look at the situation of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and how, salawat padhne ek baar. It reminds me of the early days when Saddam was overthrown. There were some people, even in Toronto, sitting down, sometimes even on the mimbar, criticizing Ayatollah Sistani. Oh, what is he doing? Why he's not courageous and bold enough to do this and that? Baba, you are sitting in Toronto, you do not even know the reality and the facts on the ground. You are going to, dictate for Ayatollah Sistani sitting there looking at the situation, what he should do and what he should not do? Later on, of course, people realize, okay, what he was doing, he doesn't interfere every day, but whenever he intervenes, it is for the good of the nation and for the good of the Shia community there. Especially when he prevented the Americans from having the constitutional assembly on the basis of caucus system. They wanted to get some people from Shias and Kurds and Sunnis on an equal number almost, bring them together. And this is all Ayatollah Sistani hold them to their slogan of democracy. He says any constitutional assembly formed by the people who are in power at the moment in a temporary way, this will not be legitimate unless it is formed by an assembly elected by the Iraqis, one man, one vote system. Because you talked about bringing democracy here. And by doing that, he basically ensured that, all will participate in this process of forming the constitution, and the Shias also, through that method of democracy, will get their rightful share in the power structure of that country. So he was looking for the good of the country as well as for the good of the Shia community of Iraq. And so we have to realize that, situations from one place to another, from one community to other, would be different as long as our goal is same, our objective is same, to serve the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can have a variety of strategies within the bounds of our own Sharia law. Salawat padhne ek baar. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when I remember Ayatollah Sistani, this is because I remember Imam Hassan alayhi salam at that time. He also faced situations where some of the very loyal and sincere Shia would come to him and protest against his decision of making peace with Muawiyah. To saying that, why did you do it is one thing. But to use unfriendly and rude terms with an Imam who is the grandson of the Prophet, who is Ma'soom, this is not acceptable, whoever they may be. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive them because they were sincere, they were loyal, they were not enemies. But they should have known their limits. For example, if you see the example of Abu Sa'id Aqisa, he came to the Imam and he said, how could you hand over power to Muawiyah while you knew that you are on haqq and Muawiyah is dhal wa zalim, he is misguided and unjust. How could you do this? And this is where Imam basically realizing that this person is not my enemy, he doesn't understand the wisdom of what I have done. Imam gives the response in three ways. First of all, he says, remember what is my status. Am I not the hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala among you? If I am the hujjat and representative of Allah among you, your duty is to obey whatever I say. Whether you understand or not doesn't really matter. Didn't my grandfather say about me and my brother, Huma imaman, both of us are imam, qama aw qa'ada, whether we stand up and fight or we sit down and make peace? If these are the statements that you believe in, then you should just accept what I have done. Then he says that my situation in making peace with Muawiyah is not different from the sulh, the peace that the Prophet conducted with the mushrikeen of Makkah. He says the only difference is that Rasulullah was dealing with kuffarun fit tanzil and I am dealing with kuffarun fit ta'wil. Think about it, what it means. He says the adversaries of Rasulullah were kuffar fit tanzil, those who rejected the revelation of the Quran. I am dealing with those who are kuffar fit ta'wil. I am dealing with a community which rejects the meanings and interpretation of the Quran. They still say we believe in the book, but when it comes to the true interpretation, the ta'wil, they do not accept it. But he uses the word kuffar for both, situations, of course, in a different meaning, in a different implication of fiqh. And thirdly, he says that if you believe in me to be the divinely appointed leader, and this is very important, to go and ask the Imam, why did can you explain the reason for this is one thing. He says, if you believe in me as a divinely appointed Imam, you should not belittle my opinion. So they were even talking to him as if, they are questioning his wisdom, his intelligence, what kind of decision you have made. And even if you do not understand the wisdom of my action, because your example to me is the example of Musa to Khizr. He says, look at the story in the Quran. Musa alayhi salam went to meet Khizr. There was a difference in the knowledge of the two. And Khizr did things that Musa could not comprehend why he's doing it. And so he would object to that. Until at the end, Khizr explained to him the reasons why I have done these things. And this is what Imam is saying, that I am like Khizr here and you are like Musa. You're not my enemy, but you have to believe in me as a divine leader. Then you have to accept my decision. And then he says, وَلَوْلَا مَا أَتَيْتُ لَمَا تُرِكَ مِنْ شِيعَتِنَا عَلَى وَجْهِ الْعَرْضِ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا قُتِلَ. He says, if I had not done what I had done, then not even a single Shia of us on the face of this earth will be there, but that he will be killed. I have done it for you. I have done for the survival of the Shia community. One more example we have from Sayyid Murtaza, one of the famous ulama of the early days, the brother of Sayyid Razi who compiled Nahj Balagha. He quotes the statement from Hujr bin Adi. who became shaheed later on, and he has his darajat and levels, no doubt about it. But at that moment, Hujr was not right in what he said. Because he came to the Imam, and the way he talked to him, he said, "You have disgraced the faces of the mu'mineen." You know, in Urdu we will say, "Aapne logon mu'mineen ke chehre ko kala kar diya." Just think about it, it's so hurtful. And historians say Imam really was very much hurt by that statement. But he was patient, knowing that he is not an enemy. He just doesn't know the wisdom of what I'm doing. And that is where Imam says to him that مَا كُلُّ أَحَدٍ يُحِبُّ مَا تُحِبُّ. That, O Hujr, remember in the Shia community, not everyone likes what you like. وَلَا رَأْيُهُ كَرَأْيِكَ. And not everyone's opinion is same as your opinion. إِنَّمَا فَعَلْتُ مَا فَعَلْتُ إِبْقَاءً عَلَيْكُمْ. Whatever I have done for your survival. Another person by the name of Sulaiman bin Surad al-Khadai, he came and gave a kind of a long lecture to the Imam. You know, how did you do this? You had 40,000 followers in Iraq, in Kufa with you, and many others in Yemen and Hijaz. How could you even sign a peace treaty with Muawiyah? And even when you signed the peace treaty, now he's in questioning the way he wrote it down. He says, you should have put some guarantees for yourself, some money for yourself, and also a condition that when Muawiyah dies, Khilafat will come back to you. And you should have other people, the elders of Iraq, to be witnesses of that peace treaty. Because you saw what Muawiyah did later on when he came into Kufa. He actually just said that all these things written in this peace treaty is under my foot. And then Sulaiman bin Surad says he was not only referring to the peace treaty, he was referring to you. Means he was insulting you in that way. And therefore now he's trying to advise the Imam, you should actually go against the peace treaty and start to form an army. We will help you and we will fight against Muawiyah. This is where Imam says to him again, explains to him that, you don't understand the reality of what I have done. At the end, the last statement of Imam is, وَلَكِنِّي أَرَى غَيْرَ مَا رَعَيْتُمْ. My opinion is different from your opinion. I see things in a different way than you see. وَمَا أَرَدْتُ بِمَا فَعَلْتُ إِلَّا حِقْدِ الدِّمَاءِ. I have not done this except to stop spilling of the blood. أَلْزِمُوا بُيُوتِكُمْ وَأَمْسَكُوا. Go back to your homes and stay inside. Refrain from all those things that you are talking about. And this is where we come to realize that, sometimes when we study history, we have to understand the reality. Circumstances and the environment decide what is to be done. If you change the timings of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, if Hussein was older one and Hassan was younger one, you will see Hussein would have made peace with Muawiyah and Hassan would have fought against Yazid. Because they are imaman qama'u qa'ada. And this is what we have to realize, and that's the seerah and the example that we get from the example of the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. Salawat pढ़ ek baar aur. امام صبر کی ولادت کا جشن ہے. وہ امام جو اپنے حلم میں سب سے زیادہ مشہور تھے. یعنی یہ تو ہم نے جو مثالیں دی ہیں یہ تو اپنے اپنوں کی بات تھی. دشمن بھی آتے تھے. جس طرح سے امام صبر اور حلم کا مظاہرہ کرتے تھے اور کہیں نہیں ملتا ہے. اپنے گھر کے معاملات میں گھر والوں کے ساتھ, دوستوں کے ساتھ, ماننے والوں کے ساتھ, دشمنوں کے ساتھ بھی. ہاں جہاں موقع ہوتا تھا کہ بولنا چاہیے, جہاں ایک شاطر دشمن آتا ہے توہین کرنے کے لیے, تو یقیناً امام جو ہے اسی ٹائپ کا جواب بھی دیتے تھے. خود معاویہ کے نشست میں ایک بار، مکہ میں بھی تو طواف کے درمیان عمر بن عاص ملا تھا۔ تو جہاں جہاں ڈیمانڈ ہوتی ہے حالات کو دیکھتے ہوئے انسان جواب دیتا ہے۔ ہمیشہ تلوار نہیں چلتی ہے، ہمیشہ ڈنڈا نہیں چلتا ہے، کبھی کبھی انسان جو ہے دوستی اور صلح صفائی سے بھی دشمن کے دل کو جیت سکتا ہے۔ صلوات پڑھ دیں ایک بار اور۔ امیر المومنین کے آخری دور کا زمانہ ہے۔ ایک واقعہ بیان کر کے ہم ختم کرنا چاہیں گے کہ کوفہ میں کچھ لوگوں نے امیر المومنین کو کمپیئر کرنا شروع کیا امام حسن سے، کہ امیر المومنین فصاحت و بلاغت میں اتنے آگے ہیں، لمبی لمبی تقریر کر سکتے ہیں، بہترین خطبہ دے سکتے ہیں، امام حسن کی زبان اتنی اس میں روانی نہیں ہے۔ تو جب امیر المومنین کے کان میں یہ باتیں آئیں تو امام کی حیثیت سے اور باپ کی حیثیت سے تکلیف ہوئی۔ بلایا امام حسن کو کہ ابن رسول اللہ، علی بھی حسن اور حسین کا احترام رسول کے نسبت کی بنیاد پہ کرتے تھے۔ اپنے دوسرے بیٹوں کے ساتھ خطاب کچھ اور ہوتا تھا، حسن و حسین کو اپنی اولاد ہوتے ہوئے بھی کہتے تھے ابن رسول اللہ، کہ ہم نے اہل کوفہ سے سنا ہے قالوا فیک مقالۃ اکرہھا، باتیں کی ہیں تمہارے بارے میں جو ہمیں پسند نہیں ہیں۔ تو امام حسن نے کہا کہ بابا یہ لوگ کیا کہتے ہیں؟ تو امیر المومنین نے پھر اس کو مختصراً بیان کیا کہ یہ کیا کہہ رہے ہیں۔ لہٰذا علی کہتے ہیں ہم چاہتے ہیں کہ بیٹا تم ہمارے سامنے ممبر پر جاؤ، ارے خطبہ دو، تاکہ انہیں احساس ہو کہ جو یہ باتیں کر رہے ہیں وہ غلط ہے۔ امام حسن فرماتے ہیں یا امیر المؤمنین لا استطیع الکلام وانا انظر الیک، کہ بابا اگر آپ وہاں بیٹھے ہوں گے اور ہماری نظر آپ پر جائے گی تو ہم نہیں بول سکتے ہیں۔ بچپنے کا بھی واقعہ یاد ہے نا، جب رسول اللہ کے خطبے کو سننے کے بعد بی بی فاطمہ سے ریپیٹ کیا، اور جب امام امیر المومنین کو بی بی فاطمہ نے بتایا تب باپ کو خواہش ہوئی کہ ہم بھی سنیں کس طرح سے بیٹا جو ہے نانا کے کلمات کو کنوے کرتا ہے۔ پردے کے پیچھے تھے لیکن پھر بھی امام حسن کی زبان آگے نہیں چل سکی۔ تو وہ احترام جو ہے باپ کا اپنی جگہ پہ ہے، اور وہی یہاں بھی تھا کہ بابا اگر آپ ہوں گے تو ہم کس طرح سے بول سکتے ہیں۔ اس وقت امیر المومنین نے کہا ٹھیک ہے ہم چلے جائیں گے گوشے میں جہاں تم ہمیں دیکھ نہ سکو، سنیں گے تمہیں لیکن تم ہمیں نہیں دیکھ سکو گے۔ اور پھر اعلان کیا، باقاعدہ اعلان ہوا کہ لوگ مسجد میں جمع ہوں۔ لوگ جمع ہوئے، امام حسن علیہ السلام ممبر پر جاتے ہیں، بہت ہی مختصراً خطبہ جس میں آغاز ہے قرآن کے ایک آیت سے، ایھا الناس اعقلوا من ربکم، اے لوگو اللہ کے اس کلام پر غور کرو۔ سورہ آل عمران کی آیت نمبر 33، ان اللہ عز وجل اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل ابراہیم وآل عمران علی العالمین، کہ خداوند عالم نے آدم کو، پھر نوح کو، پھر ابراہیم کو، اور پھر خاندان ابراہیم کو، ڈسینڈنٹس آف ابراہیم کو تمام لوگوں پر پریفر کیا ہے۔ ذریۃ بعضها من بعض، یعنی ان میں جتنے ہیں ایک دوسرے کے رشتہ دار ہیں اس لحاظ سے۔ پھر فرماتے ہیں اس آیت کی تفسیر کیا ہے، فَنَحْنُ الذُّرِّيَّةُ مِنْ آدم، آدم کے ذریت سے مراد ہم ہیں۔ الاسرۃ من نوح، نوح کے خاندان جو ہے جس کا ذکر یہاں ہو رہا ہے وہ ہم ہیں۔ والصفوہ من ابراہیم، ابراہیم کے خاندان سے جو سلیکٹڈ لوگ ہیں وہ ہم ہیں۔ والسلالۃ من اسماعیل، ہم آل اسماعیل میں سے ہیں۔ وآل من محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ، صلوات پڑھنے پر یعنی یہ آیت جو ہے ہم پر منطبق ہوتی ہے۔ خداوند عالم نے استفاء اور سلیکشن کی جو بات کی ہے اس کے مظہر ہم ہیں تمہارے زمانے میں۔ نحن فیکم کالسماء المرفوعہ والعرض المدحوحہ والشمس الضاحیہ، تمہارے درمیان ہم لوگوں کی حیثیت اس بلند آسمان کی طرح ہے، اور اس وسیع زمین کی طرح ہے، اور اس سورج کی طرح ہے جو اپنا نور دے رہا ہے۔ وَكَالشَّجَرَةِ الزَّيْتُونِيَّةِ، اور اس درخت کی طرح ہے جس کا ذکر خداوند عالم نے سورہ نور میں کیا ہے، لا شرقیہ ولا غربیہ، نہ ادھر انکلائن ہے نہ ادھر انکلائن ہے، بالکل مستقیم ہے، التی بورک زیتھا، جس کے تیل کو بھی خداوند عالم نے برکت عطا کی ہے، النبی اصلھا، وہ شجر جس کا ذکر سورہ نور میں ہے، امام حسن کہتے ہیں اس کی جڑ جو ہے، اصل جو ہے وہ رسول اللہ ہے، وفرعھا علی، اور علی جو ہیں اس کے ایک برانچ ہے، وَنَحْنُ وَاللَّهِ ثَمَرَةُ تِلْكَ الشَّجَرَةِ، اور ہم خدا کی قسم اسی مبارک درخت کے میوے ہیں اور فروٹس ہیں۔ فَمَن تَعَلَّقَ، آخری جملہ ہم لوگوں کے لیے ہے، فَمَن تَعَلَّقَ بِغُصْنٍ مِّنْ أَغْصَانِهَا نَجَا وَمَن تَخَلَّفَ عَنْهَا فَإِلَى النَّارِ هَوَى، جو بھی اس درخت سے اور اس کے کسی بھی برانچ سے متصل ہو جائے اور ان کا سہارا لے تو اس کو آخرت میں نجات ملے گی، اور جو بھی اس مبارک درخت کو چھوڑ دے جو محمد آل محمد کا درخت ہے تو اس کا راستہ سیدھے جہنم کی طرف ہے۔ صلوات پڑھنا ایک بار آپ۔ امیر المومنین کونے میں بیٹھے تھے کہیں کہ بیٹا کی نظر نہ جائے ہم پر، پھر آتے ہیں نکلتے ہیں، مجمع کو چیرتے ہوئے قریب گئے، ابھی امام حسن منبر پہ ہی تھے کہ خود امیر المومنین بھی آتے ہیں منبر پر، اور بیٹے کے پیشانی کا بوسہ لیتے ہیں اور پھر فرماتے ہیں یبن رسول اللہ، اے فرزند رسول، آپ نے اپنی حجت کو ثابت کر دیا اور ان کو ان کی اطاعت جو ہے آپ پر واجب ہو چکی ہے، فویل لمن خالفک، اور برباد ہے وہ انسان جو آپ کی کبھی بھی مخالفت کرے۔ خداوند اس قلیل بات قبول فرما، ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے، ہماری توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما، امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما۔ خداوندہ جہاں جہاں شیعان علی ہیں، جہاں بھی ہیں، پاکستان ہو، افغانستان ہو، بحرین، عراق یا سیریا کی سچویشن ہے، خداوندہ ان کو اپنے حفظ و امان میں رکھ، اور دشمن اگر وہ قابل ہدایت ہے تو ان کی ہدایت فرما، اگر قابل ہدایت نہیں ہے تو ان کو نیست و نابود فرما، برحمتک یا ارحم الراحمین۔